Get off my plane. Nobody can say that rugged line.
The only person who could say it as good is probably Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, it has to be somebody that's been in the game for a long time that has that voice of being just like an angry grandpa.
Probably would just ask you to really get off their yard.
Get off my lawn. What up, everybody? What's going on? This is Back to the Classics, Super Throwback to the Classics. Super Throwback September is upon us now. I am your guy, Jay Alonso. This is the show where, let's do that again. Super Throwback to the Classics, the show that gives you, I'm fucking up the intro. Here we go. The cinematic movie podcast that takes you back to the iconic films of 20 years ago and beyond, right here on the Big Three. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio, and now just added Pandora. I am Jay Alonso. With me, of course, is
David Danger Neff. How you doing, partner?
I'm good, bro. What's going on? Like, the last show we did wasn't even really like a movie review. We just kind of picked out a movie so we can honor Chadwick Boseman and may he continue to rest in peace. But this is the first movie back for me.
Yeah, this is the first movie back for you. It's been, 5 weeks for you? It's been, 5 weeks for you since you did a movie review?
About 5 weeks, yeah. And for this to be the movie coming back to, it's like, all right. You know what I'm saying? But before we get to that, how was your week, bro?
I went to the lake, and I got seriously burned. Can you see that? Look at that.
Oh, I can't see that. You're like a whole different shape.
Oh, yeah. Went to the lake. I went to the lake on not Labor Day, but the day before on Sunday. And it was like 116 degrees outside. It was hot. The water felt really nice, which was really great. A good amount of people out there, which kind of makes me crack up when I hear like the stuff that happened like Lake Travis in Texas. The whole like all these boats were parading for Trump. And then like 5 of them sank in the process, and I don't know why. That just kind of makes me laugh a little bit. But yeah, man. I mean, just kind of doing that. Been working at home this week. Kind of brainstorming some ideas for the future a little bit. And yeah. How about you, bro?
Oh man. We just had Labor Day, so. Spent the majority of the weekend kind of hanging out with the family and spending time with the lady and kind of just enjoying ourselves. Really, we had like a inopportune, out of nowhere kind of a pool party kickback at my grandmother's crib yesterday, which was Labor Day, and it was cool. Skylar came out and my girl was there and a few other friends kind of showed up, and then we kind of just. Let everything else go, and plus, if you live in Vegas, where we live, then you know that yesterday our clouds weren't necessarily clouds; those were smoke that was covering our clouds damn near all day.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Wildfires in LA.
Yeah, it's a good thing that we found out that the couple is having a boy. By the way, great job.
Yeah,
great job. And laying all of California know.
Way to let the whole Western Hemisphere know you're having a boy.
Like, for those of you who aren't familiar with the story, apparently a gender reveal went wrong when a smoke grenade, don't know how that works, went off and created this whole huge wildfire. Now, when I tell you that the sun in the sky was so hazy that it looked like a sunset sun directly smack dab in the middle, it was literally red, I ain't playing. The only good thing about that is the temperature was already dropping today, and boy, when I came home today, like from running errands and whatnot, it was like good, cool, 76 degrees outside, and I was like,
"Yeah, dude, coming home from work today to make sure I got here in time to do the show. I think today was the first time I'm driving in my car, and I didn't need the AC.
Nope,
I kind of kept the windows down, and it was." Pleasant, like this is a very pleasant day out today. So with that's just signs that fall is indeed on the way. And but our weather people are saying like, yeah, enjoy this while you got it because come this weekend, hundreds are back.
Yeah, but I think this is going to be the last kind of hurrah of it. we're recording this on the 8th. This is going to drop on the 11th, and we're going to discuss that here in a second, or the 10th, 8th to 10th, 11th, whichever. And I mean, from the sounds of it, they're making it sound like after like the 22nd, we're supposed to be in the 90s, and then we're getting into the October weather, which I'm excited. I mean, Halloween is going to be a trip. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, because typically,
by any chance, were you on the Strip at all anytime this weekend?
I did drive by it.
Pandemonium.
Monday on Labor Day. I actually wanted to go pick up loaves for something. Me and Skylar did, and it was insane how packed the Strip was
with no mask and whatnot. I
saw a
video over on Cactus and Las Vegas Boulevard of like just dudes like spinning out doing donuts, and like a cop is chasing them like all over there. I'm like, come on, guys, but I mean, that's what's going to happen. I think everything in California is still currently closed, so people are going
to you have that issue for sure, and you also have the issue the fact that it's technically, by Vegas standpoints, Labor Day is your final summer holiday to come out, wild out one more time for the temperature drops. And this year is almost like I think we got more people this Labor Day weekend than we've ever had in Vegas when shit was really open and running.
It definitely, I'm not sure if it was the most. I just think it felt like the most because people weren't doing the Vegas thing. Most of the Vegas things that you do, you have shows. Well, there's no shows going on right now. Gambling's kind of ho-huff. Some buffets aren't even open, so you have
buffets are open.
No, buffet. There are some buffets open. Wicked Spoon, the one in my hotel, that buffet is open. The Wynn buffet just closed down.
Probably.
Yeah, so I don't even know what's going to happen there. But there's not like a lot to do. So what do people do? They act a fool, they get drunk, and they want to start shit. That's what they want to do.
I mean, listen, people were walking around smoking, chilling, drinking, just outside really for the sake of being outside. And I saw a nice amount of people walking around in their mask, but at the same time, it was almost like a lot of people had that whole vibe, like, man, fuck COVID, I'm out here. And that's an issue.
Look, I don't blame people for having that thought. It makes sense. Fuck COVID, seriously. I'm tired of COVID also. But at some given point in time, like we still, you still gotta, you can't, you
be responsible.
Thank you. You gotta be a little responsible here. Go out if you want, but man, like just understand you're the one putting yourself at risk and everybody else at risk when you do so.
Yeah,
that's all I can really say at this point.
But I mean, but the fact that we are in that city where we have that crazy turnover rate, people come just for the weekend, wild out, and they go back to where they come from. It's and they haven't reported as far as our cases either spiking over the weekend or
no. We won't know for 2 weeks for sure.
Right. So essentially, you kind of hope like, well, if you're gonna be out here doing it anyway, just be responsible when you're gonna do it. Like even like I didn't mind walking on the Strip, but I just knew I had my mask on the entire time. And took a step further, we had gloves and the whole nine though. So like I'm not touching nothing. But at the same time though, with COVID being as crazy as it's been, with 2020 being as crazy as it is, people just need a fucking escape. Same thing for me when I left Vegas, go to LA for a couple of days.
Yeah. Let's switch things up. Let's go into some movie news. I wound up actually finally watching Bill and Ted 3, just like you did a couple weeks ago. I now own it because I actually just went straight ahead and bought it on VOD. And I gotta say, I really enjoyed it. Dude, it was solid. You're absolutely right on the chick who played Ted's daughter. You're right.
Dead on Ted though.
You literally said the words. I think whatever she did was follow Keanu Reeves around for whatever reason, just to find out mannerisms. And bro, you could not have hit that more spot on than that. So kudos.
I was like, is that really his kid? not really,
Yeah.
but I mean, she has she has mannerism down.
Even reading the reviews on it, like when I showed it to my friends, a lot of them were like, "We're going to have pretty low expectations." And I said, "That's pretty okay." I said, "It's okay to have low expectations on this. Like it's kind of the first movie back from COVID, outside of Unhinged, obviously, and you don't really know what's going to truly happen. And this could honestly have just been a fanfare thing." But the way that they kick it off with bringing back the original actress for Missy and bringing back the original Deacon, and then bringing back Ted's dad, and making sure that it's not just a cameo or appearance, that they actually kind of had at least a small enough role to have
He's
a
actually in the
story.
movie. Yeah.
It's well casted. Even the George Carlin tribute was great. I thought the actress, I can't remember her name because she's done a lot of voice work, who played Carlin's daughter was fine.
Kristen Shaw.
She did fine.
I bet she's the voice of
She's been in a few things. I know
the
that.
daughter, the crazy daughter from Bob's Burger. That's how I actually know her.
Oh yeah. She's Louise.
Louise, yeah.
Yeah, she's Louise. And like I said, I mean, I felt like everybody did a pretty good job. As much as I liked Keanu Reeves in this movie, Alex Winter came out like he was hitting the lines pretty good.
And really, I give so much respect to Alex Winter for that because he knew what he was coming in with.
Yeah.
Prior to this, obviously Alex Winter in Freaks?
Well, he's done a lot of directional work,
Okay.
But it was one of those things that, no, you're absolutely right. You don't really
see him everywhere.
You don't get him in a lot of things, but Freaks was one of the, or not Freaks, Freaked.
Yeah,
that's it, because I'm thinking of the TV show. I know that he's done a couple of documentaries, very, 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 very small roles. What he did, but when it came to directing, he was doing a lot of TV show work. I know he directed a couple of TV movies. But no, you're not wrong. It's not like he was anything truly stellar after Bill and Ted. But no, kudos to him because he was nailing his spots on that for sure. Right. I couldn't stop laughing at how they were just pompous douches throughout the movie, their other us's, and eventually it got to the point where straight up Alex Winter looks like one of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but in human form, was all ripped out. But no, you gave it a 7 out of 10, I think. I'm willing to say that I'm okay giving this an 8 out of 10. I think it's going to go above your expectations. I think it's going to be one of those movies that if it ever comes on TV, you'd be really okay watching it. You'd be like, you know what? Why not? It'd be all right.
Really, and if you're a fan of the actual franchise itself,
and I am.
Face Music is a very solid third entry in the franchise.
It's a cherry on the top kind of movie. It kind of hits everything that you're kind of looking for. Right. I didn't feel like anybody was too. Even Anthony. God, what's his name? The guy who played the robot. I know him from.
What is this?
I know him from the TV show Barry, and he's hilarious in that. In this, it was like, of course his jokes didn't hit, but then after a while, you were kind of just chuckling because they were so committed to getting his awkwardness down that it just kind of made you laugh. That you're like, why would you make this decision? But
that character was the closest thing that reminded me of Galaxy Quest, which was the last movie that Dean Parasite directed. Right. I love Galaxy Quest. It's a fantastic movie. So he was the one thing that was close to Galaxy Quest to me.
Right. I mean? Now you caught so hold on. So either you streamed it or you bought it. the remake of Mulan. So,
So let me give you the backdrop. This is Monday, Labor Day morning.
now your girl said that she loved it, and I didn't know what to feel.
Okay. so so Monday morning, we had went out. I'm sorry. The night before that, we went out. We went out to eat. Crashed back at my place, and she had been just hollering about wanting to, shove out the $30 from Mulan. And I'm not saying I'm not saying that I wouldn't pay the 30, but in these times, and let's be real, Disney isn't fucking hurting. They're not hurting at all. So for me to dish out an additional 30 for a movie that I'm gonna likely watch once, and then also on a streaming site, I don't pay for Disney Plus, but for people who do pay for Disney Plus, so they're paying for Disney Plus and an additional 30 to watch the movie whenever you want to until it becomes officially available on Disney Plus December 4th, right? To me, it just didn't feel like
worth
the money. Right. So what happened was I had jumped online. I'm gonna tell the truth. I was looking for a nice little stream on it. I'm not paying $30 for that.
No, that's fine.
However, I did come across a website that happened to have coupons for the movie that Disney did not promote. So with this coupon code, which I'm not going to say where I got it from, but just know money was paid.
You can tell me when we're done recording.
Absolutely. And the coupon was basically it was 50% off. So instead of paying $30, I paid $15.
Okay.
So pay $15. We watch Mulan. How's Mulan? The very first thing that you notice off top is it's a genuine shame we could not see this in a movie theater because the scope of it is so big and the frame of it is so just huge and it's really like the heritage of I'm gonna assume China, but
it's Chinese culture.
It's of Chinese culture. It's so big. I mean, it's beautifully shot, and as far as like me, I'm a nerd when it comes to like cinematography. If it looks good, at least that gives you that extra push. Be like, all right, well, let me at least see what you do with this beautiful landscape that you guys created. With that being said, Mulan is boring. It's so fucking boring. Now my girl's gonna go off me to tell me like, you don't know what you're talking about. She loved it. She actually watched just the other night. Like, who watched it again? Why am I paying for that shit again? No. but she loved it. She as you can see, she's on Facebook. Super done with it. She loved it. My issue, and I guess this coming being a critic. My issue with the movie is, my Mulan came out in what, 99, 98?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. The thing that makes Mulan so special isn't even really Mulan. It's the Mushu character that Eddie Murphy plays. It's the cricket. It's all the characters that surround Mulan. Mulan herself is a iconic character for sure. Mm-hmm. But if you try to emulate that for present day, and let's also not forget, Disney's cartoon live action adaptations haven't been the best. Let's just be honest with what it is.
Garbage. Garbage is the correct word.
Garbage. And the last good one we got was The Jungle Book. Honest to God truth. Because Dumbo was trash. Lion King was trash. Here we are with Mulan, dude. It's boring. It's unbelievably boring. It's one of those things to where because it's such serious content, you need something in there to kind of loosen you up get some good humor in there, and there is humor in this movie. But the Cricket character that we knew in the cartoon is actually a soldier in this movie named Cricket, and it's like, all right. And what we get for a Mushu is really like a flying phoenix that pops up every 30 or so minutes to point Mulan where to go. So you're left with these questions to be like, if you have all these abilities that you've kind of kept away, and you go up to do this thing because you know your father can't do it, why keep it a secret for so long? Like, to the point to where you could be out there on the battlefield and really not need a sword or not need any kind of protection. You have this particular gift. You don't need none of that. So why do we need to sit here? Granted, Mulan is about 2 hours, 5 minutes long, and the cartoon is about 1 hour 20. So an extra 45 minutes to drag out a story. And I'm bored the entire time. I'll say this, though, for positives, though. Oh, my God. What is his name? Donnie Yen's in this. So bomb to see him. I love seeing him. I'll watch him in anything he does.
By the way, did you figure out who the Emperor was?
Jet fucking Li. Yes. When I tell you I watched it, I had to rewind. I'm like, I know that Asian dude. Who's that Asian dude?
Yep.
Jet Li. Gong Li's in it. She's great. The chick that plays Mulan, though she did a good job, she lacks emotion for me.
Right.
So if we're going to give it a score out of 10, my girl would say, 10, easy. But for me, I'm going to go ahead and give it like a 4. Like a 4, maybe 5 for great cinematography, but I'm gonna keep it at 4.
Here's what I've heard, and I wanted to make kind of a quick thing about this because it's happening every single Disney movie for some time now. For some odd reason, they build these characters. They build these female characters, and I hate to do it that way because it makes me sound like I'm trying to be sexist. But that's not what I'm trying to do. They build them to where they almost have no struggle whatsoever. Where that's like they're already perfect enough. So if you just wake up perfect, girls, you're gonna feel great about yourself. And that's what I've mainly heard is like the biggest critique about this. And I got to be honest, this is something that Disney has kind of done recently. It's also something that a couple of these movies, Ocean's 8 is the first one that comes to mind where it's like, Ocean's 8 took the most interesting character of that entire cast and not made her a part of the heist at all, which was a big mistake in my eyes. And then the other side, and then there's like 2 other things. They insult the entire Ocean's trilogy, and then at the final one, like nobody had a real struggle. Nobody had the it's following the heist like game plan, right? But you know, in the heist game plan, there's always that moment where it's like shit's gone wrong. We have to figure something out. There was none of that. It went by so perfectly, and it doesn't write for good stories. It doesn't write for good character development. It makes me not feel for these characters. When I look at like, and if somebody's going to say, okay, well, what's a character you want to throw out that's female that has at least that kind of development? Sarah Connor is the first one that comes to mind. Ellen Ripley is the second one. These are characters that really had to struggle to break from an idea of a role that they were in to become the badasses that they wound up becoming through the 80s and 90s, right? And we've seen that especially in the Disney cartoons. Mulan's one of those characters that for a princess, she's whooping ass most of the time. But one of the beautiful things about the original Disney cartoon was the Be a Man song. If you're watching what's happening during Be a Man, she's learning how right. She's learning how to be she's not learning how to be a man. She's learning how to be herself. She's learning to finally stand up for herself and not just fight for her father's honor. She's fighting because she wants to succeed. Technically, she failed, was told to get sent home, but instead said, "No, I'm going to get that arrow. And I'm going to get it taken care of." That made me like Mulan more than most Disney princesses, because she's fighting for herself. So when I hear that this version of Mulan is just like she's already perfect, it's like, well, then how can I root for somebody that's already perfect? I don't want Regina George. I don't want Regina George. I want somebody to root for, because it's good to root for them. Even Rey, in the Star Wars trilogy, as flawed as that trilogy is, at least she still had something that she was trying to get through, which is her namesake. Is it poorly written? Absolutely. I'm a Star Wars fan, and it's poorly written. But I didn't see the problem being Rey. Rey was not the problem with that trilogy. I think Daisy Ridley did a fantastic job for what she was given. I just felt like they weren't willing to take the risk that they should have taken instead.
And another one of my biggest pet peeves now with this kind of movies is like, if you're the chosen one, or if you're the one, or you're the one that the prophets chose, whatever, it's almost like there's no training montage to go with how you got so good at what you do. It's just like 1 minute you don't have it, next minute no, you're good and you're great at it. It's like okay.
Which legitimately was a problem with Rey.
And Tenet. Tenet has the same problem.
Yes, Tenet also.
Tenet has the exact same problem. But yeah, I mean, I can't tell you don't go see it. What I can tell you is,
go see it once and never think about it again.
Don't even think about it again. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, the biggest shame is we were unable to see this on a big screen, because had you had the opportunity to see this on a big screen, it probably would have changed your perspective of the movie itself, because it's really grand, it's really big. You know what I'm saying? It's actually so big, it kind of takes away from the fact that the movie itself is not that great.
Right. I was going to go into the last little bit of movie news, which is going to be that the Dune trailer drops tomorrow. But the reality is that without us actually talking about the trailer, it's hard for me to hype up something that just not a lot of people really know a lot about. For those of you who are not sci-fi nerds, Dune is generally considered the best-selling science fiction novel of all time. It had a movie that came out in 1984, which really was not that good. This was supposed to be like the remake, the big singing in, the whole wow, I can't believe it. And keep in mind, this book was written in 1965, so there's going to be a perspective of it from 55 years ago that people may or may not share today. And because of that, I really want to talk about it, but I just, without a trailer actually being involved, and without kind of explaining some of the things that happens in the book and in the series and yada, 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 I'm going to go ahead and skip it. So let's get into today's movie.
Before that, I want to bring something to you really quickly. So we're now in September. We're now in the fourth quarter, right? As we know, the Oscars will press on like normal, obviously, with movies now reopening. We're now getting into the Oscar caliber films now. Where are you as far as Dune? Your level of excitement to see where it would land by Oscars 2021.
So, first and foremost, currently Dune is scheduled to drop December 18th, but there's already talks of them pushing it back. Part of the reason why is because they had to finish up some reshoots on something, and the director even said, "Look, I'm already kind of cutting it close right now. It's gonna be a long shot for me to get it done by December, but for now, I'm saying that it's gonna be ready by December." That being said, Dune for me could very well get awards, and I'm not. Dune's not really like an action book. There's a lot of action in it, but a lot of it is kind of more about that weird like sci-fi ideas. So when that happens, it doesn't really do well in award season. But I could say that, you could see stuff like costume design. It could probably get nominated. You're probably going to get an idea of adapted screenplay for sure. You're going to get some kind of cool little awards. I'm assuming special effects is probably going to be in the conversation, but I also pretty much feel like Tenet's going to have that wrapped up, because I got to give credit to at least Christopher Nolan. Sometimes you're really curious how the hell he did some of those shots, especially when you consider that there's just not a lot of special effects in the movie itself. It's just a lot of really unique camera play that he's doing. Because of that, that's gonna play a major factor to it. Award season wise, I can't really say.
Right.
But not until I see a trailer, not until I see a script, not until I hear how the actor's acting. I heard from before the COVID times that there was a lot of hype to it beforehand. A lot of people were saying, "Yo, don't even worry about Dune. That thing's going to be off the hook." But again, my expectations are kind of tempered right now until I see for myself.
Right.
That's all I got. You got anything?
Yeah, I'll say this. This could be the year that streaming movies, the Netflixes, the Hulus, the whatever, those could see a lot of things get pushed through as far as what came out, what really had a bang when it came out. And, really calling like I see it, as far as what's being released theatrically that we know is for sure coming, that's still dead. It to come. You still got Candyman, October 16th. Not an Oscar caliber, not an Oscar movie, but something to look forward to in the fourth quarter. And then movies like Death on the Nile, the movie with Ben Affleck called Deepwater was really, and then No Time to Die, Soul's coming, Free Guy's coming. But I'm telling you, it's the streaming movies you got to really look out for. For example, what's called Antebellum with Janelle Monáe's coming out. I want to say it's next week.
I have not heard good things at all.
Really? Oh man.
I think IGN literally posted a 3 out of 10 for the movie.
Damn. Well, okay. So going off what I've seen this year as far as streaming goes, I don't think it's very far fetched to say that we may see the King of Staten Island somewhere in there.
I can see that.
Whether it's writing, whether it's far fetched, but even a Best Actor nod for Pete Davidson. But
an idea. I think the Five Bloods is going to be in the conversation.
Five Bloods is definitely in there. Delroy Lindo's definitely in there, without a doubt. Slightly directing. I see the Five Bloods getting in there for Best Picture for sure.
I think you're going to see The Invisible Man get a little bit of Oscar buzz for sure. The Way Back, maybe, even though I don't necessarily fully agree with the movie, but I think The Five Bloods is probably should be considered right now the heavy favorite until we see where this is going, because it's a fantastic movie. I'm not going to lie. I think it's due time to give Spike Lee his Best Director award, regardless of the fact. Let me guess, Lakers won. He pulled it off, didn't I? What did I tell you? I told you they were going to pull it off.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with it. Like, you're gonna have a couple of movies out there that may sneak in a little bit, but this is a perfect opportunity to celebrate Spike Lee and all he's done for cinema, especially with how hard hit the African American community or Black community, whatever you want to call it, has been hit this year. And keep in mind, I don't want to say that as if trying to pander to him. Spike Lee has been around a long time now, and he's owed at some point. And he's right now, he's in Scorsese territory. which is Scorsese
And
waited way too long to get his first Best Director. Spike Lee should not be waiting that much longer.
I'm so glad to even hear you use that particular term. He's in Scorsese territory. Like
Yeah.
when you talk Spike Lee, you're talking the Spielberg, Scorsese, the Chris Nolans. Like Spike Lee has, like most directors, they all have a bad day at the office.
Sure.
But it's undeniable. Spike's last 3 films have all been hitters,
Absolutely.
big hitters at that. Black Klansman definitely showed people like, no, Spike Lee's definitely around, and don't get it twisted. He's definitely around for sure.
You already know my problem with Spike Lee, and I'm still saying that he's in Scorsese territory. You know,
Absolutely.
That's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that I have personal problems with the way Spike Lee directs movies, and he still is, and he's due at this point. There's no reason otherwise. So yeah, and that's just a little bit of Oscar talk.
Today's movie, first Super Throwback. Huh?
I'm so glad we did this movie.
Yes, man. So first movie, Super Throwback September. We are proud to present and talk shit about and really praise Air Force One. Original release date, July 25th of 1997. Shares opening weekend with Box of Moonlight, Good Burger, and Hostile Waters. Production budget, $85 million with a box office total of $315.2 million. Currently at a 76% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Absolutely fair.
Very fair.
I think 76 is probably the correct number for it. So now I have to comment on something because now I'm a little interested. The first movie I ever did for Beat Network was Good Burger.
What's Good Burger?
Yeah. That was the first movie I ever did. You're meaning to tell me that you chose Good Burger over Air Force One when you decided to cover movies?
Yes. Yes, I do.
This is why I handle scheduling.
and I stand on that. Now, but rewatching this movie because I'm going to be honest with you. Before the show today, I haven't seen this movie, Jesus, in at least 10 years, if not longer, right? But something that I've always like remembered. You know what I mean? Really, because it's certain things about the movie, even like when I was a kid and it came out, I remember seeing the poster for it, and it's literally a mean monkey Harrison Ford's face and the plane below him. It's like, oh, so this is a Harrison Ford Die Hard on a plane scenario. All right, cool. But
no doubt about it.
Huh?
No doubt about it. This is a Die Hard trope movie.
Absolutely. But who better to save the president than the fucking president? You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
You know, like they didn't count on the president being like a one-man killing machine. You know, whole army, one dude could take on the whole army by himself. But it has that. Okay, so before we get into it, it has that '90s cliche tropes that we've grown to love. Obviously, '97 was a great year for movies as well because don't forget we got Face Off earlier that year, and it's to this day for me it's hard to top Face Off. It's really hard to top Face Off. Face Off was like the quintessential '90s bubblegum action.
Okay.
No, man, no. Look, Face Off is that. It's Face Off, Con Air, in some aspects Broken Arrow. In some aspects, you also got Passion 57. It fits into that. You know what I'm saying? What makes Air Force One in the lower tier of that is because while it's pushed as an '90s action Die Hard on a plane situation, there's not a lot of action in it until really the third act, if you really think about it. And then the trailer sells you on it's really Harrison Ford versus Gary Oldman. And Gary Oldman is the shit in this movie. We'll get to that in a second. But it sells you on Harrison Ford versus Gary Oldman. When in actuality, it's Gary Oldman versus the U.S. government.
Okay, so a couple of things with what you said. I wouldn't say this movie runs at two speeds. Okay, once it gets to the main plot, because you have to, it does give about its first 15 minutes of the film to kind of get to know a little bit of the characters, and it very very quickly hits on why Harrison Ford would make such a great president. It's a running joke in the industry, so much so that Scary Movie 4, when they were looking at presidents, had Harrison Ford picture. I wonder what President Ford would think in this whatever. The whole idea that I'm trying to hit on is, you could, in my opinion, you can make the argument that the best portrayal of any president in television or movies was Harrison Ford's version of the President of the United States. And why wouldn't he? Yeah, he has a cheesy line, but he also had a great speech at the very beginning of this film that pulled on you.
Yeah.
The amount of anxiety that you get from this film sometimes. I know the ending. I was still getting anxiety watching it for probably my 15th time. Part of the reason why I wanted to hit this movie is because this movie is supposed to drop on 9/11, which we all know is one of the most tragic things to ever happen in the history. It is the most tragic thing to ever happen in the history of the United States for Americans. So what better way to celebrate that than to have the President of the United States have his plane hijacked by a known enemy and him to save the day in the process? It's great. Let me ask you, do you think there is a better president portrayal on film or TV
Than Harrison Ford?
than Harrison Ford's John Marshall?
Well, here's the thing. Okay, so that's a loaded question, because John Marshall wasn't just the president, and I also love the fact that they play on the fact that the moves that he's making in this movie is not the moves that a president is making. It's the move of a husband and a father. So you understand where he's coming from.
But he's doing the same things, because he is being presidential in some of the and let me okay, I'm spoiling this part. In the scene where he's held as hostage the first time, he is literally commanding the board, his cabinet, to fire at the aircraft. Mm-hmm. I want you to fire at the aircraft so I have a chance to break away from this. What?
Presidential enough.
That's some balls, man. That's some balls you don't see. Go ahead.
But also, now you said who has played a better president, at least on the same same tier level. I can give it to Morgan Freeman in Deep Impact. He didn't do half the shit President Marshall did, but he's dope.
Talking about President Tom Beck, which is fine.
Huh?
You're talking about President Tom Beck.
Tom Beck in Deep Impact. Yep.
I'd argue that Michael Douglas in The American President, mind you, that's a romantic comedy, but he has moments in it where he's acting presidential. I'd argue Bill Pullman in Independence Day for coming as close to John Marshall as you could possibly get.
He's about as close to John Marshall as you'll possibly get. And he got into the plane, and he went up there, and he fought back. You're damn right.
And the only other one off the top of my head would be Jed Bartlett from West Wing. You had him for 9 seasons, and he was excellent all night. Now,
where Ford gets the prize though is that it's not an action set, it's not an action moment, none of that. It is one of the most tense moments in the movie, and that's when finally Harrison Ford and Gary Oldman are now face to face, right? And Gary Oldman's character slides him one, and he eats it like a straight G.
Oh,
I loved it. I mean, the face that he makes, he boom, and a real show like, all right.
Yeah.
He eats that punch like a straight G. And no matter what Gary Oldman does, Gary Oldman will always be my first choice for any villain. Because when he's calm, he's scary. When he's pissed, he's scary. When he's making demands, he's scary. Like, Gary Oldman has always played just a scary dude. Like, and I know we're bouncing around.
We're bouncing around for a reason, because I'm trying to hype people up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because this movie, when I said it runs at 2 speeds, here are the 2 speeds. It's either neck-breaking fast with its action, okay, where it's like the action is going. It's not that it's going so fast that you don't know what's going on. It's that you don't have a moment to catch your breath.
Right.
Or it's creepingly slow with its buildup of every little set piece. And I'm not talking about, Ford sneaking around in the back. No. I'm talking giving the moment to Gary to build. And where the end of the road is to it, but you can't help. It's like you're watching a car crash. You know the impact is going to happen, but you can't help but peel your eyes away from it. This is why.
When he goes to that room, and he goes, he points at the mother and daughter and goes,
"Let's get into the movie. Let's get into it."
Wait.
Because that's such a good moment.
I gotta get it out. I have to get this out. When he tells them to come on, and they're all kind of like looking around, and he just, boom, no! You better get your ass up, because he's calling you. He's gonna kill everybody on the play. Let's go.
All right. So
this
movie kicks off with kind of a long scroll. By the way, this movie is directed by Wolfgang Petersen. Probably best known before this movie for Das Boot. He
After
also
this was
did
Perfect Storm,
In the Line of Fire, and he also did Outbreak. So he's very good at kind of building. He's very good at building this whole the whole like contained chaos scene, which is probably the best way I could describe Outbreak, because literally it has to turn into contained chaos at one point. So this movie kicks off with basically a combined Russian and American Special Forces unit captures General Ivan Radek. And this movie hypes up Radek so much for how terrible of a person he is that you never actually get to see him being a terrible person. In fact, you only really get to see him being released from prison at one point.
And of course,
but the aesthetic, the music, it's hyped. Like you're just like in the eyes of an American, you're like, I just released Osama bin Laden. That's the way that I look at it. I just released Saddam Hussein. What the fuck am I going to do? And
the guy that's playing Radek is like, oh yeah.
Yeah, he's the dude.
You're Radek. You're him.
He is actually one of the dudes from Das Boots. And he's from something
Jurgen Prochnow, something like that.
Yeah, he's in another thing. He's in another thing. He's in he was the bad guy in Beverly Hills Cop 2.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been he's just been around. And man, he's like this dictator of Kazakhstan. 3 weeks later, U.S. President James Marshall attends a diplomatic dinner in Moscow, during which he praises the capture and insists that the U.S. will no longer negotiate with terrorists. But I really kind of have to hit on this speech, because it was at this moment where you realize how sincere and yet serious he was about everything he was saying. And what I mean by that is that he says, "I came here tonight to be congratulated, but today when I visited the Red Cross camps, overwhelmed by the flood of refugees fleeing from the horror of Kazakhstan, I realized I don't deserve to be congratulated. None of us do." At this point, like, his chief of staff and his national security advisor are like, what the fuck is he doing? Like, this is not what we talked about. Let's speak the truth, and the truth is we acted too late. Only when our own national security was threatened did we act. Radek's regime murdered over 200,000 men, women, and children, and we watched it on TV. We let it happen. People were being slaughtered for over a year, and we issued economic sanctions and hid behind the rhetoric of diplomacy. How dare we? The dead remember. Real peace is not just the absence of conflict, it's the presence of justice. And tonight I come to you with a pledge to change America's policy. Never again will I allow our political self-interest to deter us from doing what we know to be morally right. Atrocity and terror are not political. Oh man, he's hamming it at this point a little bit, but you feel the impact of the words because it's like it's a truth that you see that you don't see in American politics. So hearing that from somebody that you kind of already picture as president anyway, it just hammers in the picture. And as he's getting back to the limousine, he's having this conversation with, once again, his national security advisor, Jack Doherty, and who's played by what's his name? He's played by Tom Everett. He's played by Tom Everett, and the conversation is like, well, maybe next time you can tell us when you're going to decide to kind of change the speech that way. And he straight up goes, we did have a conversation about it. And he goes, yeah, but we had it in private. And he goes, well, now it's public policy. Get behind it. And I'm like, oh, yeah, man. Like the president just told you to shut the fuck up because he just eased it in there and everybody loves it. Everybody's eating it up. And they kind of have this it's a really, really good but quick scene where you're kind of seeing a little bit of that controlled chaos going into the plane. Everybody's trying to tell him the Notre Dame, Michigan score, right? Kind of going back and forth, and he's like trying to tell people, don't tell me what happens in the game, until like a passing dude intern who put down a briefing finally tells him like the score. And the whole point is that you as the president is pertain to all knowledge, but that doesn't mean you get to enjoy all knowledge in there. Once that happens, this kind of shifts a little bit as you kind of see Marshall in his inner circle with his wife Grace, who easily could get that chick award because whoever played his wife was doing a stellar job.
Whitney Houston.
Yep, and then
also the mom in Santa Claus.
Yep, and a 12-year-old daughter Alice, along with several of his cabinet and advisors as they prepare to return to the U.S. on Air Force One. But in addition, members of the press have been invited on board, including 6 Radic loyalists who are disguised as journalists, headlined by the one and only Gary Oldman, who's playing Ivan Grushunov, who is actually
Gary Oldman and his goatee. Get it right. The goatee is very much a star in this too.
Very much so. When this all kind of takes off, after takeoff, the Secret Service agent Gibbs, who's actually a mole and erratic agent, enables Khrushchev and his accomplices to obtain the weapons. But that's kind of shortcutting it. He basically walks in, and he kind of and everybody knows him. Everybody's like, "Oh, it's Gibbs," what's going on? So he goes and he gets his press briefing, or he gets his briefing of the security detail in Miami, and he hands it off to his 3 guys. He's holding a silencer. The crazy part about this is that it's not like he's in some like secret room. He's in the middle of the fucking plane, but he has a silencer. Now, I know people are going to say you should be able to hear the silencer, and I'm going to agree with you, but I don't care. Like it's just cool for him to just come up, pull out the gun, and shoot the three Secret Service agents dead. At that point, he decides to open up this locker of the Secret Service weapons, which has body armor and machine guns, and lets off a smoke grenade, and the action just like immediately begins, and this chaos like all happens. Immediately you have people taking control of the cockpit. They're taking out any defense threats. None of the Russians die in this process, and one particular scene where a secret agent is trying to close the door on the family as they're wondering where her father is, and boom, like a shot happens and shoots him right in the back as he's falling down, like right in front. It's just like, it's this controlled chaos that is frightening to see, because again, there's no place to go. You're on a plane that's in the air.
Right.
Go ahead.
So to jump on the You're in a plane. Really, you can't go anywhere. You're in the air at this point. Now the scene gets so intense because during this time they're getting Harrison Ford, the president, obviously, to this pod that he can escape from, and he'll land wherever he lands. They'll go and get him. Now the fact is, we knew for a fact he's not getting to that pod. Whatever. As shit really starts to like get crazy on the plane is now they're landing, right?
They land in Ramstein. They land in Ramstein Air Force Base in Germany.
Yeah, right. So, and at this point now, they've managed to get to the cockpit and tell the pilot, "Get us back in the air, like now," right? And that scene is so heavy because it's like, like once they dart off right into the grass area, I'm like, oh, this is about to get real, right? And so you can feel the tension because if number one, if you don't take off, you're about to run into like at least 6 other planes. Number one. Number two, they put the one guy in the cockpit. Like, is he trained for this type of shit? He's got to find a plane, right?
Right.
So when that happens, and they're able to take back off again, I was like, it was a point in the movie to where I was sitting there. I was like, my heart is really beating right now. Like, I hope they actually take off.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You know, it's the safest thing you can do right now is just take off again.
Right.
You know?
And what's crazy about so this is what's really great about this. You as the audience member knows that Harrison Ford is not on the plane. But the bad guys don't know. Neither do the good guys. The good guys don't know either. And the good guys don't know that the bad guys don't know, and vice versa. So it's, again, a little bit of this like script, flip-flopping around where they're trying to figure out basically who they have. Because after the plane lands and crosses, whatever, and somehow misses the C-130, which I already have problems with, but somehow misses C-130, you get this like, once that chaos all happens from the beginning to the beginning to the journalists, or not basically the terrorists getting the guns, shooting, you have people dying, all around you. You know that the president's wife and daughter have been captured. The escape pod goes down, the plane lands, and then it takes off, and you get this lasting shot of everybody trying to help out the situation. Just like pause, like, what the fuck did I just witness? And it is such a good moment because you're like, okay, we're now here. Where is this movie going to go from now? So that's where this movie really starts to kind of do this kind of slow crawl again. But it's not slow. It's just it's more like creeping anxiety that kind of happens. Unknown to the hijackers.
It is a pace that works, though.
Yeah. Unknown to the hijackers, Marshall, who is a veteran of the Vietnam War and a Medal of Honor recipient, has remained hidden in the camp hold instead of using the pod. And he begins to kind of use his military training to observe the erratic loyalists, and he kills 2 of the guys pretty quickly. Then he uses a satellite phone in the luggage to make contact with his vice president, Catherine Bennett, at the White House. But this kind of goes again, and consider the government nerd in me, but it goes into question of what would you now consider is viable action for the country, because you don't know what the terrorists want at that current point. You don't know what the terrorists want at that current point. You don't know where everybody's kind of going with this. You don't even know if the president is technically even supposed to be in charge, as there's this really great little sequence where it's like, this is a military operation. The Secretary of Defense is in charge. Now, there's a reason why that scene is thrown in there, though. It is a cut that out in my eyes. All right.
There's also the full award as well.
But there's a reason why it's in there. Okay. And the reason why is when President Reagan survived his assassination attempt and was in the middle of surgery, his secretary, this is real life now, the Secretary of State, Alexander Haig, tried to make a power play and say to then Vice President George H.W. Bush that he's technically the person that's supposed to be in charge because of everything that's going on. So he tries to overstep the vice president's candidacy, and they had to get the AG, the Attorney General, involved to get in there. Yes, it is a cut that out scene. I don't think it was necessary for this kind of movie, but it did kind of throw into the question of the questions of the 25th Amendment, as well as what is necessary and proper for what is right for the country versus what is right for as the individual. So when you finally figure out what Kurushnov, who has now contacted Bennett for the direct release for Radek's release. Radek, who's responsible for over 200 deaths in Kazakhstan, who very much would overthrow the regime in Russia and very likely have access to the nuclear launch codes. He gives a very, very simple order, and he says this. He says, "I will execute a hostage every 30 minutes that my request is not fulfilled." Of course, it follows the trope, right? You have to give us more time, blah blah blah. No. The first thing that happens is that the minute that the first 30 minutes is up, you get the national security advisor who comes stepping up and says, I don't know if you know this, but the vice president isn't really well experienced in this. I'm the kind of person that you want to talk to about this for this kind of thing to happen. The call is made. The vice president says, "We need more time. We need more time." He goes, "More time." Pulls out the gun and blows a guy's blows a guy's brains out, like right there. You hear the shot. It's in front of everybody. It is shocking to kind of just see. To finally see a villain straight up use his exact promise for the exact time that he said he was going.
He's not bullshitting with y'all.
No, he wasn't. At that point, the stakes are immediately raised. And he said, "Oh God," Sinise says the most perfect line. He goes, "Your national security advisor has just been executed. He's a very good negotiator. He bought you another half hour."
None of that.
Man, ratchet it up a little bit.
So and then they also soon after that they take out the press secretary,
right? Which
Mitchell,
right? Which we're going to get into in just a quick second. So to kind of get in control of everything, Marshall decides to do a couple of things, right? First and foremost, Grace and Alice are held separately from the other hostages as he executes the national security advisor. Marshall decides to start dumping fuel out of the plane's fuel reserve in an attempt to force a landing. At this point, the next 30 minutes is up, and this is a really heartbreaking scene because it was to try to drive a point home, which is they pull Melanie Mitchell, who's basically like the first lady's press secretary. She's kind of there for the family, kind of the person they talk to about all these sort of things. And she goes, "I don't want to die." She's doing all that. And he goes and he slow counts to 10, and he's all like 1, 2. And you're hearing the terror. But but what's beautiful is that when he gets to 10, it's over. It's over for Melanie Mitchell. And there was no reason for you to believe that he wouldn't do it. He just executed the national security advisor. And he does. Now, you don't see the death, but it's very clear that she's dead.
Oh, you hear the gunshot.
Oh, you hear it. And everybody is just like heartbroken on this. And begins to say that this will happen. So once the fuel is beginning to be released, Khrushchev subsequently demands a mid-air fueling using a KC-135. Technically, they say it's a KC-10. It's a KC-135. I'm going to tell you right now, that's a KC-135. John Marshall captures one of the guys and forces him into the conference room where the hostages are being held. And Marshall, along with his military advisors, devises a plan to trick Khrushchev to take Air Force One to a lower altitude for the refueling, which is 15,000 feet and 200 knots. Now, here's the thing. They're in a 747. A 747 doesn't have an ability to drop off passengers. So I kind of thought that was hilarious. Like, even President Clinton, like, who loved this movie, was just like, yeah, we don't have an escape pod. It's like, we don't have an escape pod, and we don't really even have a parachute hold because the 747 slipstream would catch everybody and we would all die. So ever since then, they kind of switched off from the 747, which I thought was hilarious. As they begin to kind of refuel, they use a fax machine to basically say to get where it's supposed to be at. As they begin to drop off the fuel, passengers are exiting the plane by way of parachute. All of a sudden, all hell breaks loose because the terrorists figure out what they were up to. Of course, blows open the door. A couple of them die. Somehow, the president doesn't die in the process, even though he doesn't have a parachute on him.
He's right by the door.
He's hanging, literally flopping in the wind. He's just like a fish that's just flopped on the boat, you know. But they rescue him, and now they have the president of the United States, captured. Go ahead.
So I'm so glad that you let me get up in here for this one. This is where shit gets.
This is
so good.
I hit my favorite scene, so go ahead.
Huh?
I hit my favorite scene, so go ahead.
So this is when you get this standoff. Not even standoff. They have the president. The president and his family. They have everybody. He comes in. He hugs his wife and daughter, but now you're face to face with Khrushchev, and it's the most intense stare down. Like, Gary Oldman staring at somebody just as the villain is already crazy as shit. But you have the hero, Harrison Ford, who can look at you and give you another intense stare down. And now they're staring down at each other. I'm feeling the feelings in the air. Like, I hate you. You know what I'm saying? But Khrushchev forces him to contact the Russian president, Petrov, and to arrange to have Radek's released from prison. And this is kind of when we get our first official look at Radek. Now, Bennett is urged the Defense Secretary Walter Dean, played by Dean Stockwell, which is like, bro, you always play a weasel. Anyway. But to declare the president incapable of the 25th Amendment so as to override Radek's release, but she refuses. We don't give Glenn Close enough love for this movie. Glenn Close does. No,
she definitely has, like, she had a lot of tough decisions to make, and she basically had the presidency right in her hands. Basically. And basically was like, no, and like turned it away. And I'm like, you know what? Kudos to you, because that's a tough decision to try to pull off. Go ahead.
So Marshall breaks free, kills Kolchak, one of the other terrorists, and Linsky. And now you have this fight between Khrushchev, who tries to kill Marshall. Shepard instead takes the bullet, leaving him wounded. And then Khrushchev drags Grace down to the cargo hold. Now, it gets to the point to where, that fight's coming up pretty soon, right? And the one thing I didn't like about Gary Oldman's character is the fact that he's that typical Russian or some sort of a foreign terrorist or bad guy who, when the actual showdown between the good guy and bad guy is going to happen, But he's always like, "Oh, this is where you lose. This is where I win." I'm like, not really, but all right, cool.
Right. I'll say this. At a certain point in this movie, the script does get worse. It does. It doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't improve. It. It definitely gets worse, and that's kind of why I passed the football a little bit, because
So
that's why this movie went from like a 90 for me at one point down to about that 75.
yeah, that 76 seems more fair. So you get this the struggle with Grace. The first lady distracts him, and before Marshall can actually get to Korshnov, now they have their little struggle moment. Uh, I I try to slow it down so I can really see him actually do it. But he wraps the parachute strap around his neck twice, and then of course you get that "get off my plane," you know that iconic line now. And when he throws it off, I completely forgot when he throws Kirchhoff off the plane. That shit snaps right there. It just dangles. He just dangles. Right. Uh, Marshall runs back to lift his order, and then you get this vibe of the scene of Radek walking outside, almost like you said, like fucking releasing Bin Laden, and he's walking out, and as soon as he walks outside, they blow his ass away. They blow him right away.
Let me say this on that particular scene. It's Radek technically should have just gotten away. And the reason why is but this guy had the audacity, the douchebagness to get out of his prisoner clothing.
Get dressed.
And he's dressed to the nines. Like he's in his Kazakian, fucking uniform, and yeah, it looks great. Don't get me wrong, but dude, like, address your soldiers once you're gone. Just do that. At this when they finally kill off Radek, this honestly would have been a perfect time to end this movie. It would have been a perfect time to kind of let but they needed to figure out Gibbs, right?
Well, okay, so that's where my problem with the movie comes in. Because even though what we're describing, as we do the review and all that, we know Gibbs was basically, a mole, right? But there's nowhere in the movie that indicates that. Like, what do you gain from helping them, and what do you gain from that?
Which is why editing has to be considered in this film. Basically, there's a deleted scene that during the Cold War, he got screwed over by the United States, and he always held a grudge against them afterwards. And he kind of sold himself to like the highest bidder at that point. So yeah, right. But we don't get that. Because we don't get that, like, that's what hurts this movie the most. It's like the bad guy's Gary Oldman. Gibbs is just the mole. If Gibbs would have died in the shootout at the cockpit, this movie's over. This movie is this movie. They land in Incirlik and the movie is over, right?
And I'd be cool with that.
I would have been fine. That would have made this movie a 90-minute movie and a great way to end this movie.
Like,
you could have had a speech, prepared at the end to kind of talk about the importance of blah 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 blah, whatever. You could talk about whatever. Add 5-7 minutes to the runtime, and then you're done. You could have ended it. It would have been great. I think everybody would have turned around and said, "You know what? Pretty good."
And it's a shame too because once you get that iconic line, to get off my plane line, and you see what we know as the main bad guy dead now, there's still 24 minutes to go. Like, oh, okay, wait a minute. Because you have to figure out what you're going to do with Gibbs. But at the same time, Gibbs is not important enough to really give a fuck about. We know he double-crossed everybody, but at the same time, like, he could have died, like you say, he could have died in a shootout. And, okay, well, you double-crossed, you died.
So, but I'm curious with the budget of this film. Is that why, with the budget of this film, they basically were like, you know what, let's find a way to kind of add a little bit extra stuff to kind of get back that tension. But the problem is once again, like, if the action's not happening hand to hand, if I don't feel the controlled chaos and instead it's an open air space, it detracts from my desire to like really feel bad because I'm not feeling anything for the movie at that point. For example, here's how this movie basically ends. All right. And I'm not even gonna like really give too much of a thing about this. Basically, MiGs come in who were radical loyalists. All right. And these MiGs come in and they take 2 shots at Air Force One, somehow didn't do enough damage to shoot it down. Okay. I'm not saying that Air Force One is built that well, but this is a MiG 29 we're talking about here. One of the best aircraft ever built. Okay. So then these F-15s come in, and there's a dogfight that has nothing to do with Air Force One. It has literally nothing to do with Air Force One. Outside of Air Force One is now losing fuel, and they're trying to figure out that situation. One of the pilots sacrifices himself to a missile, which was super cheesy. Like I'm like, dude, like we already got that scene from a dude taking a bullet. You're now saying I'm willing to take a missile for Air Force One. Come on, like it's not. I'm not feeling it. I'm sorry. Of course, they scare off everybody, and then there's something wrong, right? There's something wrong with the plane. So they come up with this idea, and the idea is pretty simple, that we're basically going to get a pilot onto the plane and zip line everybody across to the other side.
Right.
And it's kind of weak, all right? They did ratchet up the tension a little bit with Harrison Ford's ending, but it's like none of the family is harmed or at all. Finally, as the plane is steadily dropping down, they couldn't make you feel bad for anybody being left on the plane because William H. Macy is still on this plane, and they couldn't have him die from the plane crash. So Gibbs, of course, shoots him, and I'm like, okay, like it was you, like that line.
It was you.
Like,
Yes.
I'm like, I really like William H. Macy a lot, but it was weak. So then Gibbs goes. Keep in mind, Gibbs is a current secret agent. You can't just push the president off, and then just deal with it. Okay, you get arrested. You mean to tell me that with all your Secret Service, contacts, you can't find a way to escape prison or something like that? So he gets punched twice, gets knocked down. President hooks himself, and he's basically ziplining through the air, hanging on. And it's like the one true comedic moment in this movie where it's like he finally like lands, and exasperated is saluted, and he's just like, I'm like, why? Why?
Moment to me that really gave me a genuine belly laugh was CGI of '97 was not the greatest. So when the plane actually lands in the water, it's like,
No, it wasn't that good. I'll give you that.
Like,
I also kind of came up with this really dumb argument that I'm like, if I'm Gibbs, I'm Secret Service trained, which means I have to have had some form of military experience. Wouldn't I just want to try to take my chance with the plane that's going down with I know that the engines are up higher than where I'm diving at to just try to survive the Caspian Sea? I know it's not logical, but you're crashing. You have no choice. You might as well jump and take your chances. Take your chance. You're closer to Kazakhstan than you are to the United States. Come on.
Man, all right, so that's Air Force One. Overall, I enjoyed the show.
This movie still holds up. I'm sorry. Like this movie does a good job with all of its pacing except for like the final 20 minutes of the film when it really decides to get itself silly. If it decided it's instead to just say, you know what, I'm not gonna get silly about this. I'm gonna turn this a little bit into a one-on-one and a discussion of how you're not supposed to create terrorists for whatever reason, which would have probably been very helpful in 1997. Maybe something could have changed about 4 years later. But hey, what do I know? I don't know.
Let's get into some takeaways. Who's getting your that guy award?
It's really tough to give it to Harrison Ford when Gary Oldman is incredibly convincing. So I am going to give it to Gary. Yes, John Marshall is the best portrayal. Is the best portrayal ever of any president. He's the kind of president that he wants. But his talent was only secured by how insane Gary Oldman is in this movie. Because everything that he's saying, there's a particular scene I don't even talk about because it almost feels like a throwaway scene where he's just like, it's just not talked about a lot, but it makes perfect sense when you think in the ideas of an extremist, which is he's talking to the daughter of the president, and he's like, you think I'm a monster, right? You don't think I'm someone's son, or I have 3 children of my own. And he's like, you know, when I really felt my belief, the minute I pulled the first bullet through a national security advisor's head, because I knew that my belief was strong enough for me to do that. And there's people out there that really, really honestly believe stuff like that, where they say,
and he said, and I quote, "I will turn my back on God Himself to protect Mother Russia." Like, that's wild. That's a wild quote to even have.
It's a quote in this script that shouldn't be in it. That line shouldn't be in this script. This script was already fine. But to have something just nail a little bit harder, it's like you sit there and you're like, holy shit, this guy's insane. But at the same time, you're thinking, holy shit, like that's almost scary that you know that there's people out there that are like that. So yeah, it goes to Gary Oldman.
That's your word.
The real question is, do I give it to the close, or do I give it to Marshall's wife, the first lady? I'm not sure if you're going to choose close. I'm going to give it to the first lady. Part of the reason why is because she also had a really strong scene where she's basically trying to back down mind you, most first ladies aren't there to deal with terrorists. So for her to be like the voice of reason in the room, we do not negotiate with terrorists, just like that. And there's this, and Gary, again, pulling the best out of everybody in this movie, puts the gun to her head, right? And there's a moment of terror right there that felt too real, and he pulls it off, and you see her body just lean forward, just very briefly. Man, that by itself, like, secured it for me for her. Mm-hmm. There is definitely an argument for close, and if you want to say close is better, I'm all for it. I just think for me personally, I gotta give my just due to the first lady here, because she was a bomb, man. She was amazing.
All right. That full award.
National Security Advisor, the first guy who gets shot. And the main reason why is because doesn't really feel like anybody was too hung up over his death, which pretty much means
you said something, brother.
No. People cared that Melanie Mitchell died. With him, they were like, oh, he was the first guy to die, which just kind of says to me that, like, people are sad that he's dead, but they're not sad that the job is vacant now. I'll be fucked up a little bit, but I kind of look and see into that a little bit.
It's a bit more.
But yeah, no, I'm going to give it to the National Security Advisor. He's trying to be a big time player without having the backbone.
Cut that out.
Unfortunately, I do have to cut out the whole 25th Amendment scene. It's a great conversation. It just doesn't fit in this movie. It's a great conversation to have about if this movie literally had where the president was just shot, and then you want to have that conversation, that fits a little bit better. But this was, the president's been hijacked. We have to get him out of office. It's like, I get it, but I don't. But I get it. Like, he survived, so what happens? Does he have to run his re-election campaign through against the vice president now? You know, he did everything right to this point. The only problem was that he got hijacked. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I'm gonna say that's cut that out.
And I kind of oh, sorry, I'm sorry. Does movie hold up?
Absolutely. This movie came out in '97, and yet you still can feel every little bit of, yeah, there's definitely some cheesiness with it, but you still feel the tension in the air, definitely. You feel the action sequences when they do actually go down. Harrison Ford and Gary Oldman carried this movie, and all they did was make everybody better in this film.
Yeah.
And when you get a movie that's like that, it kind of starts becoming close to timeless classics.
I kind of see.
I mean, everybody wants to go to Get Off My Plane, right? But I'm actually going to give it to probably the first encounter scene they have between the president and Gary Oldman, you know, where it's just like Oldman is just like he's almost thrilled to have the president finally in front of him. I finally have the chess pieces that I want. I can move it wherever way I want to. You know, and he's kicking the shit out of the president. I mean, he gets some real hits in there, you know, and there's just like this defiance, this real defiance. And then the scene finally turns to where Gary realizes he's not going to have him break so easily. So he has to go to, once again, that extreme measure that either he's starting to get comfortable with, or he realizes that he has no chance of winning unless it goes to that. And he points the gun at the girl's head, at Alice's head, and you're like, no way. And he goes, I will come to fight. 1, 2. And you're like, dude, come on. And he's like, I'll do it. And I'm like, thank you, Jesus. No, that was a really, really, really strong scene.
With tears in his eyes, like, I'll do it.
Oh man, like, man. Woo!
Because you obviously realize he's not fucking around. He will kill her.
Yeah, I got to give credit to also Alice. Like, she wasn't a scene stealer at all, but they had the character develop from like kind of the bratty 12-year-old, a little bit of a brat 12-year-old, you know, to at the end when everybody's like worried, she was kind of like that voice of calm, of just going up to her dad and just being like, hey, everything's going to be okay. Whatever happens, we're going to figure it out. We're going to work it out. It's like that was a really good small moment in the movie that really worked for me. All right, I talked too much in this film, so who's getting you that guy award?
I would give it to Harrison Ford. I really would. Just the stare down moments are just enough to be like, yo, your stare downs are scary. But it's hard to overlook just how fierce and scary and commanding Gary Oldman is in this movie. And he's not a big guy. I'd say at best about 5'7", 5'8". To Harrison Ford's what, 6 feet?
Oh man, like I'm not even sure if that. I know Harrison's pretty tall.
But I know Oldman's not that tall.
Yeah, Oldman's maybe 5'8".
Yeah, so 5'8" to Harrison Ford's intimidating 6 feet is like, okay. But I mean, when he locks in on something or someone, and he's giving that speech, and he's really telling you, like, yes, I'm the bad guy, and this is what I'm here to do. Like, when he's talking to the daughter, as menacing as that is, he never breaks eye contact with her.
No, not at all. He doesn't even blink.
It's the scariest shit ever. He never breaks eye contact not one time. And it's the best way to prove that you are about your business is I'm looking dead at you, and I'm not breaking character not one time. And trust me. What I'm doing, I'm putting fear into you. I was scared as an audience member, like, he's fucking nuts. And that's one thing that Gary Oldman does that is so strong, especially when he's playing villain characters.
I know. Like, and he does it really well.
He does it so well.
Which is why it's like, when he finally won his Oscar for Winston Churchill, and look, I'm all for it. The Darkest Hour is a very good film, but dude, it's nowhere near as memorable as Ivan, as Rushnikov or Stetfield from The Professional,
Man.
or fucking Dracula. Like, he's so good in like everything he does.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna give the that guy award to Gary Oldman for sure.
All right, who is getting your That Chick award?
That chick award. If you're gonna go first lady, I'm gonna go Glenn Close. I feel like um the mindset of a character that is the effective vice president, and they don't necessarily play it out to be like a sexist thing, but because she's a woman, a lot of the secretary of defense, whether that's his job or not, kind of demeans her in a bit to be like, this is your time to really be on your shit, but I run this, da da da. And so the fact that she holds it down, from the bottom, and she's pretty much running things at the bottom. And you can tell she was never faced with any kind of situation quite like this one. She handles it with such finesse. You know what I'm saying? So for me, though she's scared, though she is, incredibly, inexperienced in this kind of situation, she handles it with such finesse and such like subtlety, and she shows them. Like, listen, I am the VP, but damn it, I'm gonna do what I do.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely gonna close.
All right, very cool. Who's getting your That Fool award?
Easily, Secretary of Defense Dean Stockwell. You are a pompous ass.
A bit.
I hate because it's one of those super cliche characters from the '90s that's dealing with a situation like this where it's all political. He's the kind of motherfucker that will continuously throw his title at you. I hate that.
Yeah.
Because you have a title, that's great. You're not doing shit about the situation.
Yeah.
Which is like I at first I was gonna give it to the one cat I forgot his name. He was the one who first gave Harrison Ford the shit about changing the speech.
Oh no, that's the National Security Advisor.
Boom. There. No. The other guy.
Oh no, because he took a bullet. That was the guy who took a bullet for him. Which I can't give it to him because you literally took a bullet for him.
Yeah, all right, but like I said though, the Secretary of Defense, he sucks. So for me, definitely about my that full award.
All right, fair enough. Cut that out.
Cut that out. I'm gonna agree with you. The 25th Amendment part of it kind of seems like we're going into territories that we don't necessarily need to go for a movie like this. And I felt like it kind of extended the movie longer than it needed to.
Yeah, I mean, even though the scene wasn't necessarily immensely long, it did. The entire reason why they decided to do it was to basically give Philip Baker Hall a line in this movie, right? Like, it was basically like, we need to get a guy who could play a convincing AG. Hey, let's get Philip Baker Hall. Let's see what he's doing. And he's like, great. Yeah, no, I'm down for this, but I need a line in the movie. And they're like, God, how can we turn this movie to have the AG having to speak on this? You know, they're like, oh, what about a constitution question? And it's like, I don't disagree. Like, that's a good way to get him in there, but it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. Does this movie hold up?
Yes, it does, because the one thing that you can get from a movie like this is, for a brief 2 hours, you're getting that '90s action movie cliche. You're getting, it's a basically a paint by numbers kind of movie. You have problem, you have set problem from these particular people. This is your hero. And in this case, the president's best weapon against terrorists is the president. So it's like, okay, so it's about as '90s cliche as it could possibly be, and to have Harrison Ford really showcased some big strength in this movie. Like I said, his biggest strength is his stare down with people. It's on the poster. That's how that's stare down actually is. Yeah, I think it holds up. The movie's now 23 years old now. I would say by the time we hit 25, 26 years old, it's kind of aging now. But
No,
for you don't think so?
I don't. Okay, it's kind of like because when you start talking when you start thinking it like that, well, then I have to think like Speed, right? Because Speed is 25 years old, right?
Uh,
It came out in 95.
older than that.
1995. Speed came out in 95.
Speaking of 93. Oh, no, you're right. You're thinking about 95.
And that is a tropey movie just like this. It's Die Hard on a bus, right? It's how those movies are. It's Die Hard on a bus, it's Die Hard on a boat, it's Die Hard on Air Force One.
But the difference is, though, the actual difference is, though, with Speed, you got continuous action throughout versus Air Force One. There's action sprinkled in with the gunfighting and all that, but the real, action doesn't really kick in until the third act.
But I also think, and actually I'm wrong, Speed is 94. But
all right, I don't want to 94, 93.
I mean, to be fair, June 10th, so it wasn't like it was that far off. But I agree with you on that perspective, right? But I don't feel like this. Okay, when I think that the only way I think this movie is going to age is if the trope ages. All right, the movie Under Siege, all right, which is Die Hard on a boat, but isn't carried well, but isn't nearly as carried well as Harrison Ford does. That movie feels like a 1992 film. That movie feels like it happened directly at 1992 because it did happen in 1992. That movie hasn't aged well at all. It's kind of whatever. But is the trope old, or is it because that the movie feels old? And for me, Under Siege feels old. This, man, at least the action and the anxiety buildup of it. It doesn't necessarily leave me exasperated. It wants me having more. It's the problem, honestly, with this film is the minute Gary Oldman dies. The minute Gary Oldman dies in this film, the quality of the movie goes from here, just kind of tapers.
But that's what I'm saying. By the time Gary Oldman's character dies, you have another 24 minutes to go.
Right.
So you were thinking at 24 minutes. You've landed the plane. You took care of your mole, and I always thought it would have been so dope for how they had the president address the press joint set up. Had he got off the plane, bloodied and all bruised up, and I just went through hell for the last couple hours, and still go and deliver a speech to close out the movie. Oh my God, that would have been awesome.
Now, funny trivia thing about this. This is the only time you've ever seen a U.S. president that never sets foot on U.S. soil in this movie. He's in Russia and he's in Turkey at one point. That's it. But again, going back to my point, this movie does well enough to be carried that I think 25, 30 years from now, 30, not from now, but another 5 years from now, I still think people will turn around and be like, you know what? This is still pretty okay. Still pretty.
My plane.
All right. And final, iconic scene.
Iconic scene. Obviously, it would be get off my plane, but no, iconic scene is going to be that just the dialogueless stare down between Harrison Ford and Gary Oldman.
Yeah,
Gary Oldman throws a swing at him and nails him right in the chin. Nails him right there. He eats that punch like a straight G, and he turns back looking at the camera, and he gets right with the most meanest scowl. It's almost like you get if you can do a voiceover for Harrison Ford, if I wasn't in these tapes, fuck you up. You know what I'm saying? Something like
Right.
that. But yeah, that's my iconic scene. So getting to some quick hits here. Let me see. Got my list here. You got your list?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Harrison Ford and Gary Oldman are actually hitting each other during their fight scenes.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Wow.
Gary Oldman's chilling performance earned him the nickname Scary Gary during production. However, he did not stay in character in between the scenes. Thank God. Like, I don't know if I
You
could.
can be around me.
Wolfgang Peterson called the filming experience Air Force fun because of how comedic and genial Oldman and Harrison Ford would be off screen. He also said that Oldman would suddenly return to the menacing film persona instantly. Harrison Ford has since named Oldman as his favorite on-screen nemesis.
Yep. You better believe it. Harrison Ford went before the MPAA and appealed to have the movie re-rated to PG-13, but they refused. The attempt was apparently inspired by the successful appeal to re-rate Clear and Present Danger, which also starred Harrison Ford.
Glenn Close was a last-minute casting decision to play Vice President Catherine Bennett. Close wore a wig from her own collection during shooting. Because her haircut at the time was too short for the role, she only made one objection about her character in the original script. They had written a scene of her breaking down and crying, and I said, I will not do that. Because I thought we'd be doing women a disfavor if we had that cliche moment where she breaks down. Nonetheless, the character does tear up visibly when the national security advisor is killed when she's on the phone with the terrorists. So, good move, because not just for like hashtag feminism or whatnot, but man, if she would have broke down crying, like I don't think she would have won that chick award from you. She was really, really, really strong in this movie, and it should be definitely mentioned. Go ahead.
In December of 2015, Donald Trump revealed his admiration for Harrison Ford on the plane. He stood up for America. Donald was so inspired by Ford's performance in the film that he took it too seriously. When Ford was told during a television interview of Trump's compliment, he turned to the camera and said, Donald, it was just a movie. Things like this don't happen in real life. Fucking idiot. I added the last
part. One morning, the frantic activity of taxing. So this was kind of cool because I wanted to talk very quick about that shot. A 747 could easily hit 650 miles per hour, right? But to kind of hit some of the shots that they had to greatly slow down the speed of the plane. So when it actually landed to do the swerve off, they actually did the camera speed at half speed at that point for the shot to show everything. The particular point I'm trying to hit on this one was they had these things called feasible plugs in the tires. So that because they're swerving the tire, there was obviously great risk of actually damaging the aircraft in that case, because you're going off the road you're supposed to not be on. What they did was they had these like little plugs about that big, and they would melt from the overheating. And when they would melt, it would cause the tire to just deflate itself like immediately. Right. So that's how they that's how they were able to like not have tires, have a blow up basically, which obviously probably saved quite a bit of people.
This is my last one. John Malkovich was considered to play President James Marshall in the film since he worked with Wolfgang Peterson before on In the Line of Fire back in 1993, in which he played Clint Eastwood's nemesis Mitch Leary, who goes by aliases like John Booth, James Carney, etc. But he turned it down to be in Con Air, which came out in 1997.
Very cool. And my final one, scenes depicting the Russian prison was filmed at the Ohio State Reformatory in Mansfield, Ohio. The Ohio State Reformatory was also the main prison used for the filming of The Shawshank Redemption.
You use one, you use them all.
Yeah, pretty much. That will do it for this version of Super Throwback. A nice, good, long one. I'm glad we got in kind of a little bit more of that news. Obviously, I know the world is still reeling over the news of Chadwick Boseman, but as some people in the field would say, the show must go on.
Was that your Sean Connery?
No, just that was just a voice. That really was.
It sounded very Sean Connery-ish.
Oh, then maybe it was. I'm just kidding. Um, um, I guess let the people know where they can find you, Dave. Well, you can always find you can always.
Well, okay.
So used to running the show, for when I was with Lund, so I'm not used to like relinquishing this control. Please.
Okay, so before we tell people where they can find us, shout out to everybody who's been watching FOH on the Noise Podcast page. That show is so much fucking fun. And me and Dave will be back competing on that sometime soon, hopefully. But it's been so much fun, and it's really cool to see like Lois really put so much effort into it. Putting an effort into it that does require a lot of effort, just kind of editing this and posting that, whatever. But it's a less strenuous production that he does, and it's a blast. So shout out to everybody who watches FOH every Sunday. Of course, Turn My Mic Up is back. The fellas are back together again. We will be doing a review for the new Locks album, and I think there's talks of a 6ix9ine review. I damn sure don't want to do it, but besides that though, we are here beating that work. So Rod Strong, Danger Neff, where can they find you?
So before I get into my tags, one quick little thing. For those of you who are definitely interested in like the production of FOH or even some of these productions that we have here, we do have a donate button at beatnetworkonline.com. If you scroll down to the bottom, we do have a donate button that you can always give to the funds for us. Since a lot of changes have kind of had to happen with Beat, and we're basically trying to come up with new ideas, and we could honestly use the support from the community as much as possible. If you can donate, great. Understand that times are tough. We're just trying to keep people entertained for as long as we can keep these lights on as much as we can. So please make sure you go to beatnetworkonline.com, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and click donate if you feel the need to kind of support our business. That being said, you can always find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at David Danger Neff. And the goes here at Back to the Classics. I am working to become the admin of the Facebook Facebook group, which is kind of becoming this whole thing with Facebook, because my co-host here, his previous Facebook was hacked, so that hacked Facebook is currently the admin. So
nobody's on it. So
it's kind of being a bit of a bitch. A bit of a bitch is what I'm trying to say. But definitely check that out. Yeah, that's pretty much all I'm going to have. I am working on something new. The goal is to have it ready by a certain time frame. It just kind of depends on where my potential co-host is going to be. His head is at. So I'm still working on that, and we'll see where it goes. My guy Jay Alonso, where can they find you?
You can find me on all the social media simply at, not simply at, not anymore, I forgot.
Oh, you see why I got close to the camera there?
No longer simply at nothing, actually. So on Instagram, it is official J Alonso. That's the official Instagram to find me and everything that I do for the show and to find me. On Facebook, simply J Alonso. On Twitter, also official J Alonso is where you can find me. I'll be there. You talk to me and I'll talk back. Of course, follow the show at BTTC Podcast on both Instagram and Twitter. And, of course, like Dave mentioned, the Back to Classics Movie Talk page and the Back to Classics Movie Talk group, both are up and popping. Go ahead and jump on there and join the conversation. We will be doing more BTTC on IG videos. So look out for those. And we have another thing working on as well. I cannot wait to talk about it. You'll talk about it now, right?
Yeah. Why don't we talk about the Sunday thing?
The
Fireside chats.
Say again?
The fireside chats.
Fireside chats. You do that.
All right. So there was this really kind of unique concept that I really enjoy. It's happened throughout history, and I think that it'd be really cool to kind of do for us. Where Jay and I will both be getting on Instagram or Facebook Live, probably Instagram, just to do what we call a fireside chat. And the whole idea of the fireside chat is to kind of not only talk about like a little bit of our week, going back to whatever, but we could talk about like a quick movie review that we might have seen as we need to find a way to get really back up and popping somehow.
Or even a trailer review.
Yeah, or a trailer review or something along those lines. And that's kind of where we kind of want to take it, where it's just a simple conversation. Doesn't have to be so uniquely formal, although you will be able to catch it on the official BTTC podcast Instagram page. That will be Fireside Chats. It will drop every Sunday. It is recorded live, so with warts and all. So, it's going to be as raw as hell, and y'all decide whether you like the material or not. And it's just going to be something simplistic. I love the idea personally, so we'll see.
Also, next week's show, we have guests. Family Affair next week. Loso's on the show. Skylar Ward's on the show next week.
For that movie?
No, for another one. We'll talk about that after the camera.
Okay.
So, somebody just brought something up to me I thought was quite interesting. I'm like, all right. So, yes, next week's show will be a Family Affair. The head honcho himself, Loso, will be on the show, as well as Sky Ward. Sky's doing a lot more on-camera stuff, which is nobody thought that would ever happen.
About time.
About fucking time, yeah. Say that shit. But with that being said, great. Welcome back to Super Throwback September. Want to thank everybody for allowing us to cut a movie out so we can put that time and that energy and that love into honoring the late, great Chadwick Boseman last week. But we are back to Super Throwback September. I can't wait to announce the movie for next week. I can't wait to give Taves reaction to the movie that we're doing next week. And we'll keep this thing going, man. With that being said, this is Back to the Classics. I'm your guy, Jay Alonzo, and with me, of course, is
Andrew Neff.
We'll see y'all next week. Peace. No, we'll see you on Sunday for Fireside Chats.
Fireside Chats, guys.
Yes, sir.